Hi there, Karen Fabian here, founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and here we are in the Learn Anatomy Challenge. We're up to video number 5. So video number 5 covers applying anatomical knowledge to poses. And let's face it, this is really where the heart of the matter is. This is really where things come down to why we learned all the details so that we can apply it to the postures. So one of the things that is always of interest to teachers, usually, is sharing muscles at work in poses. And this is something that really can only be done with integrity and accuracy once you, as I said in an earlier video, do the work to go through and learn the details. Once you learn the details, it's much easier to share in an understandable way with your students things like what muscles are working in certain postures. It can be really helpful to have a framework for that. And one of the frameworks that I love to share is an action cue, an action cue, an action cue, followed by an anatomy-based cue, where you're speaking to the muscle that's creating the action you're talking about or you're referring to. So let me give you an example. As I'm in my downward dog, if I step the right foot forward, drop the back heel down, reach the arms up high, and then ask my students to squeeze the thigh of the back leg to straighten the knee. See if you feel the action of your quadriceps as it does that straightening of your knee. So what I did there is I presented 3 really clear, really short, very succinct action cues. Step the right foot forward, drop the back heel down, reach your arms up high. I then followed it by adding the anatomy-based cue, where I reference the name of the muscle and what it does. The quadriceps extends the back leg. And I cued them to squeeze the thigh to contract that muscle a little more. So that's one example and a framework that you can use right away to be able to share anatomy with your students. Now, of course, there are hundreds and hundreds of ways that you can share anatomy with your students. We're not going to go over them all here in these little short videos. What I want you to know, though, is that that framework of action cue, action cue, action cue, anatomy-based cue, as I said, you can definitely use right away. One thing I'll just suggest is that only refer to the anatomy if you know what you're talking about, right? It sounds kind of obvious, but I can tell you that many times teachers feel pressure to teach things from an anatomical perspective. They go to class and they pick things up that somebody else said and they just repeat it, figuring who will know that I don't really know what I'm talking about, I just hijacked this cue from somebody else. Or they were told to say it in training and they didn't ask the follow-up questions, so they really don't know the why behind the cue. And that's what I was talking about in one of the earlier videos, which is you're saying a bunch of words, but you really don't know what you're talking about, and that really doesn't feel great. Matter of fact, that's where a lot of problems with teacher confidence comes up, and that feeling like you're kind of feeling like you're an imposter. And sometimes teachers send me emails and they say, I don't have any confidence when I teach, I don't feel like I'm qualified to teach, even though I went through a 200-hour training and subsequent trainings, I still feel like I'm missing the mark. And so one of the big ways that you can shift that is to take a sidebar and invest in that learning gap so that you do understand anatomy and then share from what you know. It's a totally, totally different experience, much more powerful, and one where your students will definitely notice the shift in your confidence. So that's the end of this video. Let's move on to the next one.